Dallas has just been on a tear. I believe we can attribute that to Jason Robertson. Also, Jake Ottinger, who's really stepped in.
Yeah, so we can compare a rookie QB to a toddler. Hayward's absence for this game will be significant, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game turns into a blowout as of late.
The Golden Knights just can't pull it. I really think the Avalanche are determined this year.
They made so many moves and grabbed so many guys that they have to win a championship or at least make the finals. They were on our championship and bust.
The same self, the only year he won an MVP was the year he cheated, which really should put something against that MVP. But
yeah, and as a Cowboys fan, I have learned how dangerously good Aaron Rodgers has been with he can just thread a pass.
Hello, I am Ruby Ackerman, and you are listening to Outsider's Opinion with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL opinions of the weekend. This is kind of a general question that's been going on in my head. And the man that I will be posing this question to, Austin, and the question is, there seem to be more holdouts. I know there's talk about T. Higgins. I believe he is holding out. I know CD Lamb is holding out, and Jamar Chase is also holding out because of contracts or wanting a new contract or franchise tag. And to me, it seems like we're seeing more of this. And I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on a player holding out?
For my favorite team or in general?
Let's start with your team and then we can go in general. Let's say
Jordan for my team, I don't like it because I want everybody to practice as much as possible for the season. I understand it in a lot of cases, but there's sometimes I don't. Like Alvin Kamara right now is holding out. I don't really understand it. But there are some players that I do understand it. In general, I think it's a good thing because I think that in a lot of situations, players need to get what they deserve. And there are times where a player deserves a contract and they have not been handed it out or not been given what they are promised. I'd say 90% of the time, I think it's a good thing. I see the positive in it for the player. But when it's my own team, I usually don't like it, again, because I want them to practice as much as possible for the season so that they are as prepared as possible.
Yeah, to me, it's important to have a value minicamp, and this is in relation to mandatory minicamp. The player is losing money for holding out in search of a better contract. We saw this last year with Zach Martin. And to me, we've seen Zeke do it. I'm just thinking of Cowboys players. I don't hate it. I know some people hate it. Like they sign a contract, they should always be there. I think it's a good negotiating tactic of going, hey, I'm not coming there till the money or till I get the money. We saw this with Chris Jones last year. It just seems to me a bigger issue. Maybe it's being reported more, but I was wondering if you agree that there seems to be more holdouts in the past few years.
I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to the holdouts a long time ago, so I don't really know if there is an increased number of them. I'm sure there's some statistic somewhere that does say whether or not it has increased, and it does seem like it has, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, and then going on to, we'll just go in general. Do you think holding out harms the player's upcoming season?
No.
Okay. Why? Can you clarify that?
Because usually a player holding out is a good player anyway, and usually not a young player. They're not a player that necessarily needs the extra development you can gain in OTAs. While I do think it could harm them if they're in the case that that's a new head coach, a new system, I do think that could affect it. But if we're talking a player who's been there for a while with the same head coach, same system, I don't think it really harms their upcoming season. I think that they should still be a good player.
Okay. I think it depends. Like, I'm thinking about the Bengals right now with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase both holding out. I'm wondering how, because I'm thinking about the connection to the quarterback. Linemen, I think you're good because, like, hey, you're just
guys like Jamar Chase have already played so many years with Joe Burrow. I think it's almost better that they're not there because Joe Burrow gets a connection with all the other receivers. The other receivers, if there is an injury during the season, now he has this connection with those players that he wouldn't have had in the case that those players or that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were playing. He has a lot of experience with those guys. It's the same system, same head coach. I'm not all that worried because I do feel like Joe Burrow gets experience with guys he's not really used to, and that could be beneficial later on.
Yeah, I can see that benefit. To me, I still think like a little bit should be helpful. I think if a quarterback holds out, that's going to be the most harmful to me because he runs that offense and he
I
kind of, yeah.
I agree with that, especially if it's a younger QB. Uh, but still, they're NFL players, and this early in the season, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But I do agree that the one that harms it the most is almost certainly a quarterback.
Yeah. And the least to me would be like a defensive lineman, even an offense, like even defensive lineman, offensive lineman, because that's actually saving their body from like wear and tear, like maybe
It depends on
conditioning.
the position. If
Mhm.
it's a center, I feel like that kind of connection, like we know the whole like Ryan Jensen and Tom Brady connection that they had during those years with Tampa. I do think that could actually be harmful, especially for a young QB. Every center does it differently, and that there's no real right or wrong way. But getting used to that rhythm, I do think is important. So
Yeah.
there's definitely some positions on the O line that I wouldn't want to see out, a center especially being one of them. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. That's a good point. And then, so not a problem that not a problem that players are holding out in general for you, right?
I don't have a major problem with it now.
Okay, cool. That's kind of what I wanted to get, and then I'll end with this. There's been a lot of centering about the Bengals. I mentioned Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I couldn't find anything saying that Trey Hendrickson was holding out. We did do a video talking about him requesting a trade. So I'm wondering, given that much around the Bengals, does that seem to make you question anything going wrong? Like, what do you now? I'm trying to think of the right question to ask. How does this change how does this affect your view of the Bengals with like two holdouts right now and just given the drama off the field with contracts with the Bengals?
Say it again.
So, how with the Bengals you have two holdouts. There was the Trey Hendrickson thing with requesting a trade. How does this how do you view the Bengals given that with players
Really
kind of
affects
holding?
this season.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
do think maybe they'll have more holdouts in the future because these guys are imparting on the younger guys that it's okay to do so. But I don't think it's really going to affect my opinion on them this season. What obviously you have to see. I do think their running back situation is a little bit questionable, but I'm not necessarily that worried about their wide receiver room or even if Trey Hendrickson's holding out. Trey Hendrickson's been very good for the past 3 or 4 years. So I think that they're still in a good spot regarding those positions and that holding out isn't going to hurt them in any way.
Okay. Does it make you question anything about the front office for the Bengals?
Sure, but I do think that the players are going to try to get as much as possible anyway. So then this would just be a leverage tactic to try to get more money. So in some cases, yes, and this is a reoccurring issue if Joe Burrow has to hold out or something like that in the future. Maybe I would agree with that, but it definitely depends on the position and the situation. I'm not that worried at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, that was my final question. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I'll just ask you the same question you asked me.
Okay.
Are you happy or sad or mad whenever a Cowboy is holding out?
No, to me it's maybe I'm a little bit sad because I want them getting together, especially with CD. And I do think there's some value in conditioning. Like I want them to be conditioned and I do worry a little bit about the injuries, but I understand it from the player's perspective. That's your main negotiating tactic. And I understand trying to use that to get more money.
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
But yeah, that's all I got. I'll let you close this one out.
Thank you guys for listening. Please let us know what your thoughts are on holdouts. Are they bad? Are they good? Are they somewhere in between? And please catch us in our next video.